Hi there friends, thanks for joining me. Today I am making a travel layout using these fabulous dies from Queenacraft, who kindly sent me 3 sets of dies, which are these postage stamps and tickets, the city skyline, which is actually 3 layers, and these fabulous alphas, which are just like the ones that you see at the airport. So as I take those out, you'll see that there are 26 individual dies, one for each letter, of course. They came as one piece, and I've just broken them apart so that they could go through the machine individually. And you'll see that I've cut mine out in black and then backed them with a little bit of white cardstock. But they're completely fabulous. Really, really love them. Because I've got the city skyline, I thought I would make a travel layout about New York. We went to Grand Central Station, or Grand Central Terminal, just to pop in on our way to somewhere else. But it was just great to see it. I've been before, but my hubby hadn't been to New York before, so we did a little hike around New York on our way to the football game. So we did a massive detour, actually. Poor thing, we had to walk our feet off again. So because my photos are different shapes and sizes, I'm going to use this kind of style where I'm going to offset the photos and use the skyline to balance that up. I'm just going to put some watercolour onto the background. I'm going to make a very monochromatic layout, and my white cardstock is really thick, and I didn't use any gesso on the background. It can take a lot of water, or this cardstock can take a lot of water, but I don't like the look of gesso if I can help it, so I'm just going for it. And it won't spread around a lot because there's no gesso. But because I'm only using one layer of watercolour, I feel that will be okay. Anyway, I'm happy with the end result, so that worked out well. And as you can see there, I was spreading the watercolour paint there with some cellophane back packaging. This way it kind of gave a softer look, and maybe not the best way. And I've also done a second piece with some different colours, which I'll die cut later using the cityscape dies. So there you go. So I was just flattening I can't get my words out today, flattening those out under my mat to stop them curling. But as you can see, I've cut the first die out, and it goes through like butter, so it's really thick card. I think it's watercolour card, and you can see it's gone through perfectly on its first pass, but because it's quite intricate and there's little bits poking out, I just had to take a bit of time just to release it from the die. And I'm just going to go back and forth on this one just to make my life easier. So it's a bit fiddly just to release it from the die, just as I said, because it's so intricate. I wasn't sure what colours, as I said, I wanted a monochromatic layout, and clearly the blue and the green do not conform to that. But I think maybe if it was all just black and yellow, I might be a bit bored of it. So I was quite happy to have monochrome and then just a few accent colours. So look how beautiful they layer up together. So each die has a slightly different shape and height. So you can see all 3 layers. And you can offset them so they don't have to all align at the bottom if you wanted to. And that, would give you a taller piece if you wanted it. So now I've kind of got the structure that I'm going with. I just wanted to try and put some detail to the background. I don't have a lot of papers in these colours. They tend to be quite colourful or maybe blue or whatever, but so I didn't have a lot of yellow, so you'll see I'm just using some tiny bits and pieces in terms of paper, and the rest of it will be through inks and paints. So maybe not my normal style because I do like a lot of pattern paper, but I'm really pleased to say how it turned out. So I've also die cut NYC, and I'm going to use that as an accent at the top here, kind of a bit messy. So rather than having it to be formal, maybe as it's intended, I'm just going to use it as an accent. And I've also got some Bramble Fox perspectives here from the New York Favourites, and I will be using those just to add a little bit more texture and a bit more oomph. So I'm just going to work on my background for a little bit. I'm a bit all over the place with this, as ever. I'm a bit all over the place always, I think. So I'm just going to use one of those journal stamps just to add a bit of detail to the background. I'm using a Sukaniko Versaclear ink pad. It is my favourite, and I find it more sticky and it goes onto clear stamps much more easily. But I do think the downside may be that they run out more quickly, because I feel like this one is losing its depth, if you like, and it comes out a little bit kind of grey black. So this is how it's going to go really. I'm going to have the big title down the bottom there. And then, as you can see, the photos and elements at the top in that kind of position. And that really is how it will turn out. So from here to the end now, it's just about adding a bit more detail and embellishing. So the first thing I'm going to do is add some black splatters to the background. There are lots of different ways to do that. In this instance, I am going to use black acrylic paint. So I've squeezed some out, and I've just added some water to loosen that off. I'm really trying to do my splattering in a pizza box now, because my beautiful grey mat now has little splatters all over it, and I don't seem to want to come off either. So I'm very pleased with that. So we just need to leave that to dry, and I'm going to work on the title at the bottom. I think for it to work successfully, it's got to be super straight and quite even. So I needed to take a little bit of time just to do that. I won't show you it all because it's a bit boring. But you'll see I've just lined all those up as evenly as I could. So just while that paint is continuing to dry, I'm going to work on the cityscape. I'm going to use foam pads between the first and the second layer, just to add a little bit more depth. And I could do the same with the third, but I decide actually I don't want it too thick, as it's a scrapbook layout. I think that would be fabulous on a card though. Oh, and look how fabulous it looks. I think this would look fantastic if you had a monochromatic colouring. So maybe the light ones at the back with the darker towards the front, and it will really give you that sense of depth. I love cityscape, anything, so I think that would look fab on a card, as I mentioned. So that's more or less how it's going to go. I think everything's dry now, and it's just a case of assembling. I'm trying to get to the point where I stick down more quickly, but yeah, that doesn't always happen. Quite a lot of faffing around. So I think I'm going to use some of those lovely stamps that I pulled out. as I absolutely love travel anything. I have different sets of stamps in my stash somewhere, some of them really old. So I'm just going to add a little bit of stamping to the background to make it a little bit more interesting. And I wasn't sure where to put this extra paper plane. I know paper planes have nothing to do with a train station, but I've just really liked the energy and movement that it gave. I was just trying to see if there was anything else I could use. I've also got a set of New York stamps. I think these are Studio Calico, if I'm not mistaken. I mentioned that I keep all my stamps in a plastic wallet. So sometimes I forget to keep the background or it doesn't fit in. So I just like the way they look a lot neater that way. And I'm just going to add a little bit more to that background because I feel like, I like the colour scheme, but it does need a bit more interest. So I'm going to use some of the stamps. I didn't want it too busy. I'm not keen on super busy background. So I think background should be in the background. But it did need something more than what I've got so far, for sure. So you can see I'm working on the tiniest little space here. I've got a huge desk which is made for 2 people and I end up working in the tiniest space because I tend to just clutter everything up and then got no space to do absolutely anything. There was a little Manhattan stamp, so I'm just going to use that then to embellish the journal card, the crepe paper journal card. So I'm liking it overall. I just think it needed something a little bit more. I'm sure you'll agree. And I say it's really unusual for me not to use any pattern paper. So maybe that was kind of my issue. Like, I'm out of my comfort zone. I love these Geo paper clips that I found. I think those were from Amazon. And just to add a bit more texture, I'm going to staple that Manhattan sticker on, or the stamp rather, to the journal card. Because I feel like that's what it needs now. It's, it's kind of great design. I'm happy with the design, but it needed more detail and a little bit more texture. So to do that, I'm going to use a Bramble Fox stencil. This is number 19. If you really go onto the website, you'll notice there's no 17 and 18. That's because it was supposed to be number 17, but I'd already set up the cut file for it and etched the number on, so it was a bit too late. So I'll have to make it number 17 and 18 to fill the gap. And this is also another Bramble Fox stencil. And I think it's one of my first ones, so I'll have to check the number. But it's great because I kind of tried to put 2 designs on stencil, so really you're getting twice the value or twice the design for one price. Because you don't need a whole sheet of the same thing generally. You can just move your stencil around, as I'm doing here. So it's got these little crosses on, and the other side has got little triangles. So these are fab for travel layouts and add a little bit of texture. They work great with texture paste as well, so you can see mine's a bit mucky because I won't have cleaned the texture paste off very well. And off camera, or where my camera stopped, I'd also added a bit more detail to that sunburst with a black fine liner, just to pick out the sunburst a little bit more readily. So I've got to a point really where I'm going to start sticking down. Just going to turn this into a tag so I can add something later, so a little bit more texture again. So as I'm kind of finishing off, I'm really thinking about what other detail can I add, what texture can I add to the page, just so it kind of feels a bit more like me. because at the moment I don't think it feels quite like one of my layouts, which is kind of good. I made a mistake and put this photo or the card offset from one another and at an angle, which I really didn't like, so I'm going to have to straighten that up. I've tried to go with a wonky card and straight photo, but it just didn't look right. It needs to be more linear and grid-like because of my elements, so I am going to take some time just to line those things up. And I'm just going to glue those onto the page, get it stuck down. I find if I don't stick things down, I just kind of move things backwards and forwards, go round and round in circles. So I'm trying to force myself to say, go with it, Morag. It doesn't always work out. Let me tell you, it doesn't work out very often at all. So I'm just going to make sure the photo is actually straight for a change. And I'm going to use that perspective underneath there just for a little bit more impact. So a nice kind of bold design, I hope. I like to peel the vinyl off the back of the perspectives, unless it's something like a transparent one and I don't want to see what's behind. We leave the vinyl on the perspectives just so you have a choice. And if you're storing them in a box, they won't scratch because this one's super shiny. And I'm using 3-in-1 beacon glue to glue mine onto the page. You can use glossy accents or another strong glue. As long as it will stick acrylic to paper, you're good to go. But I do like that beacons. It's quite economical and really easy to use. So I've used those NYC letters. I cut those out of the Queenacraft Dies as well. But I'm using it as an accent rather than the title, so they can be wonky, and I was really happy with that. I'm just adding a little bit of string then to create that extra texture. And I'm kind of more or less happy with it overall, but I think I just feel like I wanted a bit more detail, so I'm just going to add a few more of those crosses where I covered them up. And as I say, although I've got lots of travel collections, I felt like I didn't have travel collections in the right colours. You'll see I'm going to look at some stickers that I have from Cartabella. I think this is Let's Go. I think I had 2 packs of this collection because it was my favourite. But you can see I've got the right colour there, but it's a plain, which I really didn't want. And so I kind of think, as much as I'd love to use them, I didn't really have anything that would go with this layout. So instead, I'm going to break from the rules and use a red apple. So there goes my monochromatic idea. Anyway, that wraps it up. I am going to leave you with some close-ups. I did add a few more perspectives. You can see those little arrow dies at the bottom on the left-hand side and above my photo. And that's the kind of detail I was after, really, so something subtle. But I really love how it turned out. I'm absolutely in love with those alphas and the cityscape. Those dies are fantastic. I'll leave the links to Queenacraft below so that you can go and have a look. And thank you so much for joining me. I hope you enjoyed it and see you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.